Okay. Before this gets totally out of control, I would like to call our meeting to order and try and assure the audience that we do have some serious business to attend to. I'd like to acknowledge that we're holding our meeting today on the traditional territory of Coast Salish First Nations and call the meeting to order. Mr. Berry, you have a couple of items to add to the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair. When you're considering adoption of the agenda, if you could add closed session new business 1, that's from Director Morrison, federal provincial negotiations. Closed session new business 2, employee relations. And there's also additional info included already with your package for CR3, the EA recommendations, item number 2.
Thank you. Does any member of the board have anything to add to the agenda? Seeing, oh, yeah.
I have an item for closed session.
Okay.
I talked to you about it.
Yeah, it can't be in closed, but I'll address it during the report of the chair. Thank you. Okay. With that being said, a motion to adopt the agenda as amended, moved by Director Patterson. Welcome, Director Patterson. By Director Jackson. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have some other alternate directors, Director Sebring, Director McGonigal, and Director Jonas. Okay. We can... yeah, I started with Director Patterson. Okay, we can move on to the adoption of the minutes. If there are no errors or omissions, a motion to adopt. Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Acton. Any question on this? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to public input period. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak to an item on the agenda, we offer 3 minutes to each person who would like to do so. If not, we will, yes, please, come forward. If you are comfortable with it, we would like to hear your name and address.
My name is Joanne Kane. I'm from the Waste Creek Improvement District. You want my actual address? Oh, okay. I'd just like to say a few words to the agenda item. Sorry, I'm not sure which agenda item it is. R2, CR2? CR3. Number 2.
CR3 number 2, yes?
Is that correct?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to, I said a little bit at the Electoral Services Area Committee. I'll say a little bit more now. There was a question about why we didn't go ahead with a grant that was approved for us to get a feasibility study. And the reason we didn't is because CVRD staff told us that the board had considered giving us the rest of the money we needed for a feasibility study for takeover. And the board decided against looking for that money for us because it was unfeasible for the CVRD to take us over as a standalone system. And we've since been assured many times that the quote is doomed to fail in the long run because we're 15 households. The regulations are getting harder and harder to sort of comply with and need more and more administrative time. Our system is old and we do need some upgrades. If we continue on our own, our well flow rate is approximately 5 gallons per minute, which I understand is less than a garden hose to support 15 homes. We're very low water users. We have a completely separate irrigation system that doesn't touch the houses, and it comes from our creek. And by virtue of that, we use somewhere between 150 and 175 liters per day per person, which, if you know the averages, that's very low. The most feasible thing to be done with us is to have us join with someone else, and Arbutus Ridge is quite close to us, and it is CVRD run. We don't want to join up with someone that is not CVRD run because we're going to run into a lot of the problems we already have. We've run out of young, vibrant people that want to work on the system, so a few of us seniors are really trying to do a good job of it. We think that something should be done sooner rather than later so we don't end up with a crisis, and we can do something that is well thought out, well managed, and well designed, and that everybody hopefully will buy into and we'll all be happy.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no one else come forward, we can move on to delegations. And we have Mr. Tom Rutherford, Executive Director of the Cowichan Watershed Board, to give us some information.
Thank you, Chair Lefebvre, and good afternoon. It's Squale, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I'd like to speak to you briefly about work that we've done on our governance manual, and I'm going to be brief. Most of you know about the Cowichan Watershed Board. We're a unique partnership between CVRD and Cowichan Tribes that's dedicated to implementing the Cowichan Basin Water Management Plan and promoting water and watershed stewardship here in the Cowichan Valley. What you probably don't know is over this past 10 months, we've been going through a series of workshops that have been designed to increase our effectiveness on delivering our current mandate, on strengthening our partnership, and on being ready to explore options around an expanded mandate. The outcomes of this workshop, many of them are captured in a major of our governance manual. And recently we have like a completed version, which is in your packages, along with a one-page overview of the changes. That work was done by our steering committee, which includes senior staff from Cowichan and CVRD, and a board member and our advisors from University of Victoria. So the process we see of adopting this new governance manual, we're now, and that's why I'm here, we're now at stage 4. So we've received support from our board. We've in fact done the work. We've been through a series of meetings with our own board, going through it in great detail. And now we have a final product that I'd like to refer both to Cowichan Tribes and to this board for support, as you are our foundational partners. Hang on, I'm having problems driving the machine here. No, it's okay. So I'm not going to go through all the changes in detail. There are some sort of administrative changes. There are a series of updates because our original manual was penned in 2010, so that's a while ago now. But there are 4 significant, what I feel are strategic changes that I'd like to quickly run through in a couple of minutes with you today. So the first one is around authority, around mandate and authority. And so we have clarified and I would say focused our mandate in the document. There were some pretty broad overarching statements, and I think we want to be sure we're focused on water in the watershed. There is a robust recognition statement now in the manual, both in English and in Hulkaminam, and it's a quick read, and I would really, well, it's a quick read in English. Might be a little slower in Hulkaminam, but I would encourage you to go through it, because basically what it shows is how Cowichan Tribes is coming into this partnership, not seeking authority, but bringing authority, right? Bringing authority that's associated with rights and title and Indigenous water law. And it's a very strong and elegant statement that allows Cowichan to see themselves in our manual. And we've also got a organizational kind of diagram, which usually is not the most exciting thing in the world, but again, I encourage you to look at that because I think it's really well done and it demonstrates where the authority in fact comes from in the board. The second major change, quickly, is the principle of Natsamat, which is a Cowichan principle predating contact that speaks to coming together with one mind to work together on a specific objective. And we had 4 principles in the manual before: transparency, responsibility, partnerships, whole of watershed thinking. I think this is a very significant addition, and along with this will in fact come some cultural training for our board, so we can really understand what this means. The third major change I would like you to look at is we changed our model of decision-making. The original model was we're going to make our decisions by a consensus, and if we can't, then we're going to vote. And it's a majority, simple majority. We've modified that so that if we're still striving for an absolute consensus, if we can't reach that, we're going to defer it, so there's time for more thought and more information. If we still can't, there's option for members to stand aside, so not block. If there's a real disagreement, there will be a vote, but we need everybody but 2 people to support it. So if there are more than 2 that don't support it, it doesn't go ahead. So, and there was a lot of dialogue at our table around that one, but I feel good about it. I think it's a better model. And the last large change I would like to direct you to is we've done a lot of work on accountability. So there's a lot of enhanced, I guess, detail around reporting. As you can see in the slide, an annual report, a business plan, including a year-end review, a financial summary, an overview, like a 5-year budget, progress evaluation. So a lot more detail on reporting, like back to our board and to our partners, right, Chief and Council and this group of people here on what we're doing and how we're doing it. And of course, the second part of that is fiscal accountability. And of course, we are accountable to our external funders. We also receive core funding, or have done, from Cowichan Tribes and CVRD. So there's greatly enhanced accountability around the funding agreement and around the reporting. And all that is laid out in detail in the excuse me, in the governance manual. So finally, what I'm looking for is for the knowledge and expertise at this table to have a look at the manual as submitted to you. In my 10 minutes of fame, I've really quickly tried to run through what I think are the major changes. I would appreciate it if you could review the document, and my understanding of your process is it will come to your table at the meeting on August the 8th. So I'm hoping you will support it. Also, if you have questions, I'm not sure if we have a lot of time now, but I will leave a stack of business cards. Please get a hold of me, and I'd be more than happy to have a dialogue through email or a phone call or a coffee, whatever works best for you. So thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That was well presented. Any questions from members of the board? Yes, Director Acton.
Hi, Tom.
Hey there.
Thanks for your presentation. I guess I'm not that familiar with Cowichan Watershed Board, and so I'm curious, is it set up like a contract, just like a subcontract, like our grants?
Contracted service.
Like that? Is that, and so now they're creating their own governance, or?
Mr. Carruthers?
So I think through the chair, what Director Acton's referring to is how we engage with the Cowichan Watershed Board. The Cowichan Watershed Board was established by this board through resolution to function in partnership with Cowichan Tribes. The contractual financial arrangements are done through a funding agreement, which we are just in the process of reviewing the current one. So that's where the financial accountability with the Cowichan Watershed Board is through an annual funding agreement.
Is it the same as other functions?
Similar to what we do with other functions.
Okay.
Go ahead, yeah.
And Tom, my question for you then is, did you guys look at other similar models to have best practices?
We did, and we got on different elements of the governance manual, we got advice from different people, right? So we received advice from the Polis Institute at UVic, who does work with water governance and alternative models for water governance provincially, nationally, and internationally. So they were able to provide that broader perspective. With respect to some of the fiscal accountability pieces, we're able to work with professionals, with both our partners as well as our accountant, who's been really helpful around those kinds of details. So I would say we took advice depending on different elements. Certainly on what I see is the importance of Cowichan Tribes seeing themselves in this document. We took advice from Lydia Whitsom, who we were able to work with closely, who is one of the foundational chairs of the Watershed Board, former chief of Cowichan Tribes, and of course a lawyer as well. So we had advice from a lot of different people.
Thank you. Director Yanni DiNardo? No, it was Director McGonigal? No, Director Sebring.
Third time lucky.
I'm intrigued by, thank you, I'm intrigued by the governance model, particularly the principle of Nutsumat. There's one paragraph that jumps off the page at me here, and forgive me, I'm a bit of a process geek, but on page 11 of your attachment, if members disagree with the motion but wish to support the group to move forward, they can stand aside to allow consensus to proceed. The minutes will record the number of people who stood aside but mark the motion as carried by consensus. I can see procedurally where everybody wants to get along, but not everybody supports the motion, and you end up with a motion that is passed by what is not a quorum of the board. How does that work? I mean, in theory, right?
Yeah. So we spent quite a bit of time on this, as you can well imagine, and my understanding is that in order to have a meeting, you need a quorum.
Yeah.
And our meetings are usually, not always, well attended. And that a decision can be made at the table if there's a quorum, and the methodology for making a decision is clearly laid out.
But
So,
when somebody stands aside, they still count toward quorum even though they've determined they don't vote?
they're still part of the decision-making process,
Okay, thank you.
right? They've elected to stand aside and support.
Thank you. Director Jackson?
I beg your pardon. Through you to Mr. Carruthers. I understand that we're closely associated with the Watershed Board and the work that they do, and I think it's great how you're doing the Nutsumat part. I think that's wonderful. The word that gave me pause for thought was partnership, and that's a legal term. And I know we are associated, but are we actually legally partners, or is this presupposing the outcome of what's going to happen in October? Like, I'm concerned about the frequent use of the word partnership when it could be like more like partnership, but it's also a legal term. So I was just gave me pause for thought, and I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Mr. Carruthers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, my use of the word partnership is not in a legal term. It's in terms of a partnership between two levels of government who are partnering on an initiative. So it's not intended to be used in a formal legal sense.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Director Marsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Rutherford. I know we're going to get a chance to talk about the details of this on the 8th of August, so right now I just wanted to thank you and your fellow board members for all the time that you have volunteered for the health of the watershed and the living things, including people that live in this watershed. And I was very moved when I read the new edition about One Mind. And I think that I'd just like you to pass on to your board the recognition that this is a really powerful step towards honest reconciliation with our neighbors who are graciously allowing us to be here in their watershed and on their land. And I found it quite moving. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could just make a comment on that. Brian and I were both at a meeting with Flynn Rowe's senior managers around water issues last week. Lydia Whitson was there, and I don't want to quote her, but to paraphrase her, she said, "This is what reconciliation looks like to me." And for me, that was, a pretty powerful statement. So, yeah, thank you for that recognition.
On that note, thank you once again, and we will carry on with this process. Thank you. Moving to the report of the chairperson, I have just two items I wanted to speak about. One, we wrapped up the BC Summer Games with a volunteer appreciation event Monday afternoon, evening, and it's an amazing, I believe, an amazing event for all who were involved. I think we had over 2,000 volunteers to make it work. We had the fourth, at the time, the fourth largest busing system in place in the province operating. And I know that the people scheduling and operating the buses were working from before 6 a.m. to after 11 a.m. The food services were equally as challenging and extensive, and we had people at all the venues. It was just an amazing, amazing volunteer effort. First Nations have been mentioned in the previous thing. We had wonderful support and participation from First Nations section of our community, which really helped us get things done. And we had some amazing events. The opening event, I'm still getting comments on the quality or the amazing opening event at Laketown Ranch, and specifically the Zinqua dancers. I've been telling people I've watched the Zinqua dancers for at least 15 years now, I think, and they just keep getting better and better, and if I think the correct word is more professional, and did a fantastic job. And I'm sorry, does anybody know the name of the group that sang "O Canada" with the Inuit? Yes, thank you. Mr. Elzinga, I didn't see you hiding back there. Come to the podium, please. Can you tell us that group? Because I have heard "O Canada," I don't know how many thousand times, and never heard anything equivalent in terms of how moving that song was with French, English, and throat singing at the same time.
I know they're from Alberta, but
I'm not exactly sure where they're from. I know it's the Prairie Provinces. I was going to guess Manitoba myself,
they're Alberta.
Director Sebring, but the group's name is Asani, A-S-A-N-I,
Right.
and I believe the three languages were English, French, and Cree.
Thank you. So now that we have you there, Mr. Elzinga, can I ask you, and you're obviously intimately involved with the entire process, but can you add some words to the description of the Summer Games?
Yeah. Words come to mind like community development, partnership, not in a legal sense, but when the school district and local government and First
The
Nations.
school district was huge, wasn't
The
it?
school district was absolutely massive in this process when 13 schools were used for accommodation sites for the athletes. All of the school buses and their staff participated as well. So it was all the way through from the Wednesday night sponsor reception where it was announced that the community raised over $1 million in-kind and cash donations toward the event, which will leave a sizable legacy in our community, through to the opening ceremonies. And the competition was fantastic. A lot of comments to Ladysmith for the creation of the beach volleyball venue at Transfer Beach was specifically created for this event. Rochelle Williams was on our team for the First Nations, so there was Hulkaminum signage at every sport venue with welcome language. It was community development at its finest, and very proud of the team, and for Jen Woik and Mona Kaiser, especially for all of their work and time in leading that event.
Thank you for that. Director Yanni DiNardo?
I believe there was an Elzinga involved in that different
Oh,
Elzinga that was pretty phenomenal too.
Yes.
We must say.
Lindsay was an absolutely beautiful singing that she did. And she did, I don't know, a whole set at the volunteer appreciation afternoon, so, yeah. But-
We're very proud of her.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't notice you in the back, otherwise I would have called you up right away. Okay, the second item, a couple of board members have approached me about the possibility of having a facilitated workshop just to talk about issues that might have arisen. I think of it either misunderstandings amongst board members or just different perspectives on some of the issues we've dealt with. Kind of a trust-building exercise. It has been described by some, but you know, I've learned recently that some members of the board have thought something happened and some other members have seen it completely differently. We are in a short timeline before the next election, but if the board was interested in us doing it with this board before the next board, because a number of members of this board will move on to the next board. I would work with Mr. Crothers. We think we can get a pretty good facilitator at a very reasonable price. If there was a desire from board members to do that, we would follow up, and I'll say right up front, I anticipate there will be a problem on finding the date, but if you give us direction, then we will work towards that. If the decision of this board is that this is something that should wait for the next board, then we will obviously take that advice as well. So I'm just going to open it up. Director Yanni DiNardo?
Last time there was a retreat, sort of, I'm not sure exactly what it was, at the Cowichan Bay Hotel, and that cost us $7,000. That was not, I don't know what came out of that, but I thought that was extremely expensive and a waste of money. So I think we have to be really clear on outcomes and consultants and whatever we want to have come out of this.
Thank you, and I'm hoping we could do something for less than 2,000. Anyone else? Yes, Director Marsh.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I was one of the members that approached the chair, and I wasn't proud of some of my behavior at the last meeting, and I apologized to the director that I was inferring, and Director Yanni DiNardo was very gracious in accepting that apology. And we actually, I feel, had a really lovely lunchtime together. And so one of the things that the reasons I was suggesting this was, I think, certainly for me, and I've heard from a few other directors, that there's been, as the chair said, maybe misunderstandings, or, sometimes I'm really great at just blurting out in my emotion something that people take as meaning something I don't mean it. And I'm happy to hear about that. Whether I'll be at this table in the future or not, I don't know. But I would like to see this board, who has done a lot of incredible work this last term, a very difficult term, sort of lay to rest and become the team that we began, so that whoever is new at the table, they're not carrying on with any unspoken things. And I really believe that we all can do that. I believe, I have great affection. I mean, there's quite a few alternates here are probably wondering, oh, what are they talking about? But everyone who sits at this table, even the Lederhauser guy, who I often don't agree with, I have great affection for as people. And we all have different thoughts about things, and sometimes under pressure, humans, I'm one of them, we don't always behave the way that we would rather. And then feelings can be hurt. So my hope was that we could just have a day of, spending together and getting back on a really nice footing and acknowledging one another with the help of a facilitator for what we do appreciate. And I'm open to feedback for what people don't appreciate, because I want to grow as a person and always show respect. So I'd like to do it, and I think I suggested an individual to the chair who I think would be an incredible, fun person, who wouldn't make it heavy, who would make it light, and help us to get back on that respect that I really do think we do have for each other at the deepest level. And I think it would make it easier for any new members to come in with a fresh slate, and then hopefully they would do the same thing with that board.
Thank you. Director Acton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was not one of the people who requested it, but I love stuff like that. We could do laser tag or something. That's cheap, $20 each. But, and I don't know that cost is really, it should be a huge factor. We manage, $34 million in requisition every year, so a little bit of money to finish the year off right, and to, I think it's a good idea. There has been a lot of negative emotions brewing, and I think in reality everyone does have respect for each other here, and we're all here for the same reason, so it would be good. I would support that. Thanks.
Thank you. So I've just heard from a small portion of the board. What I'm going to suggest is if you could just email me whether or not you're interested in this, sometime today, hopefully, today or tomorrow, and we will act upon the majority direction, and we'll try and arrange something, and then we'll bring it back here for confirmation at our next meeting. Director Marsh?
Given that there's quite a few alternates here that probably wouldn't be a part of it, would it be appropriate to email the directors who aren't
Sure.
here and ask them? And maybe give them
I
more
mean,
than the end of the day because they're on holiday,
Yeah.
some of them.
I'll send something out and to the entire board.
Thank you.
Okay? Director McGonigal?
If I may, I've been around for a while and had many run-ins with Director Duncan. I don't know many people who have not had run-ins with Director Duncan, former Director Duncan, and always spoke his mind, but everyone respected that that's who he was. I think what's really important is that for the next board have a clear and concise code of conduct in place, a procedural code of conduct for not only directors but alternate directors as well, that was given during the swearing-in ceremony. I know some communities are bringing that forward. The town of Lake Cowichan has just finished one, and that will be brought forward to the new council. So if you come in with a clear understanding of the respect that it takes to sit at this table, that we don't always agree, but we agree to be friends afterwards, I think is important.
Thank you for that. Okay, Director Kuhn, Mr. Lederhosen.
Yes. I personally don't like code of conduct. The more we play around with that kind of stuff, the more we box ourselves in. And before you know, everything that we do will be regulated, and we'll have to adhere to this, we'll have to adhere to this. My attitude has always been, if somebody says something at the board table here and hurts somebody else's feelings or whatever, the two of them should sort it out. It's just that simple. The more we make it a big issue and the more we come up with rules, oh, well, that should never happen, we'll have to have this rule now, the more we take our own freedom away, and I just don't like that at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move back to the agenda. Mr. Barry, we can move through did you have, no, the correspondence was linked to another item. Thank you. No information items. So committee and commission reports. Report and recommendations of the Cowichan Lake Recreation Commission of meeting of April 26th. Director Kuhn. Can you find it on your agenda? CR1. It'll be on your paper copy. Yep.
CR1, all right. Report and recommendations of the Cowichan Lake Rec Commission meeting.
Could you, punch your microphone button? Thank you.
All right. Report and recommendations of the Cowichan Lake Recreation Commission meeting of April 26, 2018. Recommendation that the 2018 budget for Function 405 Cowichan Lake Recreation be amended to: number one, increase the transfer from operating expenses by 6,178 and decrease surplus by 6,178.
So that's moved by Director Kuhn, seconded by Director Marcotte. Any question on this? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Director Kuhn. Moving on to the report and recommendations of the Regional Services Committee. Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Regional Services Committee reports and recommends as followed that was held earlier today. 1.1, the donated funds received by applying to this.
Sorry,
Mr. Chair, through Director Yanni DiNardo, CR2 from June 27th.
Is
on your paper copy
there's
as
only
well.
one.
This
Oh,
is an
really
older,
doing- Thank you.
prior meeting.
Yes, reports and recommends the committee meeting from June 27th. Recommendation that a meeting be arranged with Minister Robinson for discussion on affordable housing at the 2018 Union of BC Municipalities Conference.
Seconded by Director Marsh. Any question on this? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. CR3, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From our meeting of July 18th, and for all directors, items 1 through 3. Item 1, that the 2018 budget for Function 616 Carlton Water System be amended to 1, increase transfer from Community Works Gas Tax Phase 2 by $20,500, and 2, increase minor capital by $20,500. Item 2, that the 2018 budget for Function 840 Shawnigan Beach Estate Sewer System Meadowview Lift Station be amended to 1, increase transfer from Community Works Gas Tax Phase 2 by $13,500, and 2, increase minor capital by $13,500. 3, that the 2018 budget for Function 810 Missachi Lake Sewer System Lake Couch and South Shore be amended to 1, increase transfer from Community Works Gas Tax Phase 2 by $304,000, and 2, increase capital engineering structures by $304,000. 2, that the Waste Creek Improvement District water system inclusion process proceed with funding provided for the system assessment and tie-in cost estimate by the electoral area feasibility study function for $20,000. And 3, that a grant and aid electoral area I, Yubo Mead Creek, in the amount of $500 be provided to the Cowichan Lake and District Chamber of Commerce to support advertising for Area I through the Mobile Visitor Center. And I move those 3 items.
Seconded by Director Davis. Any question on this, Director Jackson?
Yes, thank you. Through you perhaps to Director Morrison, has CR3 item 2, does that deal with the concern of the lady who, it does?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
it does.
perfect, thank you, that's all I need to know.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the question then. All in favor and opposed, motion carries. Director Morrison.
Items for electoral area directors only. Number 4, 1, the development variance permit number DVP 18A02, 64-1 Sentinel Drive to vary section 10-9 sub 4 of zoning bylaw number 3520 to increase the maximum permitted height of a principal residential building from 7.5 meters to 9.5 meters be approved, and 2, that as part of the height variance comply with statutory building scheme FB 417129 covenant sections 4 sub D sub 3 and 6 sub A currently registered on title. 5.1, that development variance permit number DVP 18A03 637 Sentinel Drive to vary section 10.9 sub 4 of zoning bylaw 3520 to increase the maximum permitted height of a principal residential building from 7.5 meters to 9.0 meters be approved, and 2, that as part of the height variance comply with statutory building scheme FB 417129 covenant sections 4 sub D sub 3 and 6 sub A currently registered on file. 6, that covenant EC 106837 7790 Wentworth Road be discharged. 7, that development permit application DP 18E01 at 2800 Roberts Road be approved, and 2, that the General Manager of Land Use Services be authorized to permit minor revisions to the permit in accordance with development permit guidelines of the official community plan number 1490. I move those items.
Thank you. That's seconded by Director Marcotte. Any question on these? All in favor? This is electoral area directors only. And opposed? None opposed.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. And we will return to Director Yanni DiNardo.
And now I can start in the right queue. Your Regional Services Committee report and recommends as follows. 1.1, the donated funds received be applied to the Cowichan Valley Trail, Saltaire Rail with Trail Project in the amount of $42,298. 2, that 2018 budget for Function 280 Regional Parks be amended to increase operational surplus revenues by $25,000, increase minor capital expenses by $25,000, increase capital revenue donations by $9,798, increase capital recovery of costs by $150,000, increase capital grants by $60,000, increase capital surplus revenues by $100,000, increase capital lease improvement expenses by $319,798. 2, that the 2018 budget for Function 283, Kinsall Trestle, be amended to increase operating requisition by $5,852, decrease operating expenditure consultant by $5,852, increase capital requisition by $5,852, increase capital lease improvements by $5,852. Number 3, that the 2018 budget for Function 101, Community Health Network, be amended to 1, increase revenue in grants, general, by $100,000. 2, increase expenditures in the opioid dialogues by $100,000.
Seconded by Director Morrison. Any question on these? All in favor and opposed?
That is my report, Mr. Chair.
Motion carries. Thank you, Director Yanni DiNardo. And we can move on right down to bylaws, Mr. Berry.
Yes, Mr. Chair, bylaws and for electoral area directors only, bylaw 4226, Area I, official community plan amendment for first 2 readings.
Moved by Director Kuhn, seconded by Director Jonas, thank you. Director Jonas. Any question on this? All in favor? Opposed? Director Nicholson and Director Acton opposed. The motion carries.
And bylaw 4227, Area I zoning amendment bylaw also for first 2 readings.
Moved by Director Kuhn, seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any question on this? All in favor and opposed? Directors Nicholson and Acton opposed. The motion carries. Oh, I'm sorry, and Davis. The motion carries.
That's it for the bylaws.
I'm just making sure we did indeed. Yes, we did. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, and we can move then right down to question period.
Question period.
Mr. Evans, I see you rising. We didn't give you a lot to work with, but I'm sure you were thinking busily there about what you could ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, on the new governance model for the Cowichan and Cocosala watershed, I would ask this board to look carefully at some of the public for representation on the Cocosala portion of the watershed, because that runs through area B and D, and it would be nice to have some representation from our end of the country on that. It's one of the last excellent watersheds up where we are, and it would be nice if we could keep it that way through regulations, land use regulations. I see that some forestry land has been subdivided now because of a regulation that if a public road runs through the property, the CVRD is allowed to authorize to split that. And I think we have to look very closely at this, because we can have land development companies coming in there, and soon we'll have a situation like we have around the Shawnigan Lake. We'll have cabins from foot to foot all the way up and down that river if we don't look after it. So, Mr. Chair, when the board looks at this, would you please take some of these things into consideration?
Thank you very much for your comments, and the board has heard you, and I imagine they'll be thinking about that.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair.
Okay, motion to move into closed session, which will start up in just a few minutes when we do the changeover. Moved by Director Marcotte, second by Director Marsh. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.